Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin Daf Ayin Gimel. We're going to begin on the bottom of Ayin Beis Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom, with the two dots. Ze gitech mehayom imati micholi zeh. So this goes back on our Mishnah, the seif of our Mishnah that says if a person says this is going to be your get from today, which normally maybe that means it's chal right away. But then he says, if I die from this particular illness. So this man is already sick. And he says, if I die from this exact sickness, then retroactively, apparently, you'll be divorced. But Ahmad, he stands up, which seemingly means he's able to physically move. But halach b'shok, and he actually is almost seemingly without assistance, able to go into the marketplace, which gives the impression that maybe he actually did not die from that sickness if he dies later. And this is exactly what the Mishnah says, as is v'chol umeis. He gets sick and then he dies. So the question is, this sickness, is it connected to the original illness? So we say like this. So oimdin, we make an assessment. Oimdin I say, imachmas chayli harisha in meis harizaget. If the reason why he died was really connected to the original sickness, so that was the condition, therefore it's a get, and actually was divorced. The imlav enu get. But this is a second, totally unrelated, disconnected illness, and he died from that second different illness, so then it's not a get. Okay. So now we have to, again, analyze this. So, Rav Huna. According to the words of Rav Huna, he says the following. Gito kamat nasai. This we had before, that a get has the same status as a matana, as a gift. What is that? Ma matnasai, just like when it comes to a gift. Im omad, if let's say he gets better, he stands up, chayzer, he retracts. Avgitoi im omad chayzer. So too, when it comes to a get, if he stands up, he's also chayzer, he also retracts. Let's go straight into Rashi. So it's brought down in Baba Basra. It says, V'lo boy heichad amar. There's no question if he said, imati, if I die, the halomes, he didn't die, right? So certainly it wouldn't be a good get because he didn't die, and that was the stipulation. Now, imati, even if he doesn't say if I die, oh, yoiv get, stop. All he does is say, just give this woman a get. And he was sick when he said it. All of a sudden, im omad, once he gets healthy, then chayzer, he could actually retract from his original statement. The mistama adaita de misa yoivla b'holomes. He probably only made this declaration because he thought he was going to die and he wanted to save her from Yibum, marrying his brother, and therefore that's the only reason why he said it. But once he got better, it's clear that probably he wouldn't have wanted it. So that's the din. And also, like by a matana, if I'm going to give away $1 million, it's only because I think the person thinks he's going to die. However, if a person gets better, he's going to want that money for himself. Okay. Weiter. Just like a get, parish. Again, even though he didn't specify, he just gave it stam. Once he writes, he says write it. Even though he didn't say give. And this we saw previously in Daf Samachay. Rashi brings down, based on the words of Rav Shimon Shizuri, that if someone is masukin, someone who is in danger, all he needs to say is kisvu, write a get. Even though normally he's supposed to say tenu, give the get, because maybe normally if I say write a get, maybe I just want the get written, but that doesn't mean I want it actually given to my wife. I'm thinking about it. But when it comes to someone who's masukin, because their mind is not in the proper set, they can't think properly because they're either about to be sentenced to death or they're very sick. So we're lenient in that situation. And even if all he did was say kasovu, even if he didn't say tenu, so avmat nasuk, even the armor tenu, one comes to a gift. Once you say give, deloi kanu mine. Fine. So Tanakh. So now let's go back to our Mishnah. The Mercer made the stipulation. I want this to be a get from today if I die from this sickness. But Omar, he gets better. He stands up. A holach b'shok goes walking around in Ben Yehuda Street. He's going in the shuk, right? He's in Machne Yehuda. V'chola, and all of a sudden now he gets sick. Umeis, and he dies. So I don't know. So imach maschali rishon meis. How does it get? If he died because of the original, his sickness now of his death is actually not a separate sickness, but was actually connected to his original one, that's a get. It might be a get. So that's what our Mishnah says. Now, in fact, the Gemara, so the Gemara wonders, Ve'i amrit, and if you want to tell me, im amad chayzer, that if he gets back and is walking around, that he retracts, that the original statement is basically nothing, so lumli umdana, hari amad. You don't need to be doing umdana. He got better, and once he gets better, that's it. So it's a kashin you. So Rav Yosef Mishmei Rabba Shenitach Mechayli L'Chayli. It means that he went from one sickness to the next. In Rashi, means you amida. This is not means he stood up. He's fine. El imkin bolcha rafua shachas. He has to at least have been healthy for a moment. He was sick from sickness A, and then immediately afterwards he had sickness B. The question is sickness B connected to sickness A, so maybe it's really not a separate illness. This person really never was healthy. Whereas 1 second, what are you talking about? How can you tell me that's the case? So ha'amad katani. Amad is mashma that he got better. So amad mechayli zev and nafal chayli acher. He got up from this sickness, but again he immediately was sick somewhere else. V'ha'holch b'shuk katani. What's he doing walking around the marketplace? Obviously, there was a time in which he was not sick. So halach al mishanto. He went with crutches, like a cane. He wasn't healthy. So the fact that you saw him in the marketplace, it's great. He made it to the marketplace, but it's not a raya that he had a refuah. He went from one sickness to the next. Says the Gemara Ayin Gimel Banal, Hakamashmalon, it's coming to tell you the halach al mishanto. When you see him walking around with crutches, that's when you need to make this assessment. Is it, when he died, was it based on sickness 1 or 2? But someone not walking in this situation does nami lubi'ina. Umdana nami lubi'ina. They wouldn't even need an umdana. So it's just coming to tell you that chiddush, that the reason why is because you saw him in the marketplace walking around with crutches. So that's why we need an umdana to figure out what the deal is. But if, let's say, that wasn't the situation, so then you don't even need an umdana, because this is what Rav Huna is telling you, because there was a moment maybe that he was healthy, and therefore because of that, he can now be chayzer. So Shema Shchimira Shenitak Mechayli L'Chayli Matnasa Matana. So you're telling me if you have a Shchimira, someone who's dying, and he goes from one sickness to the next, that his gift is a gift. Since he died from a sickness, even if it is from a different illness, you're telling me it's still a matana. That must be what you're saying. Says Rashi, Im meis Mechayli Ha'acher Da Amrit Lama Midahi. That you're saying that doesn't count. He didn't really get up. He's not healthy. So, Doc, when it comes to the case of our Mishnah, so the word says, you're right. In that situation, would be a good matana. Taka is a good gift. Okay. Now, that was the sheet of Rav Huna. Rabba was svirhu. Rav Huna. They actually do not hold of the shita of Rav Huna. It says Rashi, the heichadoli amrullah im mati. If he just gave a get stam and he didn't say this decoration, if I get sick and if I die from the sickness, he just did it stam, and then he was healed, that he could be chayzer. They don't hold like that, because svirulhu dim amad eno chayzer. They hold taki, he still cannot be chayzer. So why not though? He got better. So my answer is Gezerah. Let's see what Rav Huna. Gezerah Shema Yamru Yesh Gel Acher Misa. Says Rashi, Dei Amad Chayzer. That if we say that he got better, that he can retract. Also, maybe we're going to say Loi Havi Get. It's not going to be get ad demeis until he dies. Because Chazina and the Meis Havi Gita. We're going to see that once he dies, we say it's a get. It gets confusing, and then people are going to start thinking to Maksha, says Rashi, even a person who says this is my get after Misa. And they're not going to realize that certainly that case is not acceptable, because if you say this is your get lachar misa, that's nothing, because they can get lachar misa. You can't give a get after you've died. It has to be chal before, while the husband is still alive. So, but the problem is, if we're going to say that this is an acceptable situation, you may end up causing confusion and thinking that in other cases where it's clearly not good, it's not a get. So really the truth is like this. The reality is, according to Rab and Rava, Me'ikar Hadin, it's not considered to be a get, because since he got back on his feet, so he should be able to be chayzer, and therefore it's not a get. But Rab and Rava are saying, no, we're going to make it into a get. We're going to make them like divorced. So Gemara says, one second. Midaraisa, it's not a get. But if it's not a get, so then how could we matter her into the street? How could you end up saying, you know what, as a gezerah, we're going to say that she is not married? What do you mean? So Gemara says, it's not that necessarily it's going to be a get, but what they'll do is they're going to say it was never a marriage to begin with. They'll remove the kedushin. So Amrli Rabbeinu, one second. Rabashi, Tenach the Kaddish B'Kasba. This Gemara is mentioned in 20 places. So I understand if the kedushin was with money, because we can always just institute, as we've seen before, hefker based on hefker. However, Kaddish B'Miyam Alkamemar, Samali Shebu Rabbana, as we said many times, that instead of the bia being al das kedushin, they can make it bia's nos, because we say kedas Moshe Yisrael, and that's it, and that's how it works. Okay, let's look at question 7. How does it like a gift? So he says that the im amad chayzer. So he said that if this guy gets, even if it was stam, Rashi said, if he gets back on his feet, he could retract. Rabba and Rava disagree and do not hold of him, because Gezer Shema Yomer Yesh Get L'Achar Misa. This is question 7. Umahatam de Rabba Rava Loisviru Ha de Rab Huna. Okay, let's look at question TA11, which may be the same. Let's see. Ha'omer Zegitach Mehayoim Imati Becholi Zevnitach Mecholi Chayli Umes Ha'im Haviget. So that's a little bit different. So im holach b'shok al mishanto. So if he goes on the street, right, and he's holach al mishanto, but he's going in the marketplace with crutches, so then it's a little bit confusing to us, and therefore we require an umdana. We have to evaluate if in fact he died from the first sickness or the second one. However, if he does not go into the market with a cane, you don't need an umdana, and it certainly is a get. So that's the point. Hakamash, as the Gemara above says, but the halach hamishanto hu de beinan umdana ilach idach umdana nami lo beinan. And that was TA11. That was a little bit different. And let's see, maybe TB12. Shchimi Rosh Nasan get stam. But Amad Mechalav Im Haget Batal Umadua. So Rav Huna Gita Kamat Nasai, the Chayzer, and he can retract. The Amdinon Daitai, the Daita the Misa Yoiv Lavahulo makes. This we kind of saw more in Rashi over here, which is TB12. So the Shchimira, he only gave it because he thought he was going to die. But now that he's alive, so he wants, it's not a matana anymore. It could be chayzer. Rabba have he get the im omad chayzer asal meimer, because he could retract and get chal al ad the makes. Yesh get achar misal if he could laser bro rabbanon fine. So that in itself is pretty similar to what we saw before. So TB12, similar to question 7, that part. Okay. Right. Tanova. So the Gemara continues and says the following. So you have this person who makes a statement that this is your get from today, assuming that I die from this illness. But nafal habayis alav, and all of a sudden you have a house that falls on the poor guy. Or achisha nachash, or he gets bit by a snake. So enu get, because obviously his death had nothing to do with that. Says Rashi. Okay, that's it. It's not a get. Let's say he says, if I do not get up from this sickness, if he says it that way, if he gets bit or a house falls on him, some tragedy, it's still considered to be a get because he never got up from that illness. He didn't die from the illness, but he never was healed from that illness because he died beforehand. So Shalchmi so sent from there, says Rashi, Alidei Maisa, the Heshivu, okay, weiter, Achol Hari, Shalchmi Tam, Achloi Ari Ein Lanu. What does that mean? Says Rashi, the Heshivu Ein Lanu Shiheget, the Unsa do Shchiach Ho Asaka Daita. Something which is so uncommon is not something on a person's mind. So we disagree with the Seifa as this is not shchiach, so it's actually not a get. So that disagrees with the Seifa. So it was a person, the Zaban Arul Chami, who was involved in a business transaction with land to his friend. So Kabale Kol Unsa the Misialed L'Seif Yapikula Nahara. So he accepted upon himself any oinus should be upon him. And then all of a sudden, something terrible happens. It says Rashi, Sipa Hamelech, the king made a commandment, Shaviras Hanahar Derech Oisasada, that they should pass a river through this field. Basically, the king, which you can't do much about, decided to have the field basically confiscated, destroyed. So also committed. The question is that considered to be an oinus? Is that shchiach, not shchiach? So I went to Ravina, focusing on the name Ravina. Zil Shapei Le. Go and take care of this. Says Rashi, Hamid Lafana B'Shaifi. Daha Kabil Salach Kol Unsa Demisyalid. Because you did accept upon yourself all responsibility. So you're chayav to pay for this inus. Emily Rav Achabar Tachalif or Ravina. So he said, Ravina, that's what you hold. But Unsa Lo Shchiachu. This is not Shchiach. This happened. So at Galgal Milsa, this matter continued. He also said it's an oinus which is not common, and therefore you should be potter from having to pay for it. Ravina, Rava. So the question was now is posed to Rava. Rava, you hold in this case that he doesn't have to pay for the field. It says like this: How is a get rather? So if a person says, I will give you a get, assuming that I don't get up from the sickness, and he didn't get up from the sickness because a house collapsed on him or a snake bit him, it's a get. Now that is certainly something which is not shchiach, but nonetheless, that should have been nonetheless part of the calculation. So this should also be part of the calculation. So Emily Rabba, ve'ema mireisha enu get. Actually, you can see from the reisha that's not a get, and therefore it will not work. Which means, therefore, just like it's not a get, because it's not shchiach, so it's also simply potter. Only Rav Acham Adifnu Ravina Mishum Tikash Reisha Seifa Loma Svinin Tiyoftamina. Only in Kivad Tikash Reisha Seifa Lo Itmar Beimid Rasha Umishabshtahi. The fact that there's this contradiction, it must be a mistaken brisa. Says Rashi, but Makim Yeshivas Tamid Chachamim Shizratsura. Fine. Zil Basar Svara. Umistaber. So in this situation where you have a contradiction, the things don't make any sense, then you have to use your logic, and the logic dictates that he would never have considered this as a possibility, that the house would have fallen, or in this case where the king would have made this commandment to have a river go through his field, have basically everything destroyed. Fine. So look in Taisus, so it says Ma'isha Maseifa. Imlo Yamad Kaimar Baharlo Amad. He didn't survive. Doi Amad Mashma Ben Alidi Hachayli Ben Alidi Davar Acher. Okay. Rab Papa Rab Huna Rabbi Yeshua Zavin Shumshime Agida Nahar Malka. So they were involved in selling sesame seeds, buying them at this location, which is Nahar Malka. So Agor Malache La'avurinhu. So the sailors came and they wanted to bring it by. Kabil Laihu Ko Unsa de Misyalid, and he made accept upon himself that anything that would happen along the way, that he'll be responsible for that. L'soif istakar. Eventually what happened, it got dammed up, it got damaged. Nahar Malka, that the river got all messed up. Amahu agori chamre afkinhu nihilan. So he said that this happened, this oinus, but because of it, I'm bringing to our home. Because he accepted upon himself all oinsim. Also the Rabbi Amalhu kake chivri, white geese. Mishalchi galime de inshe unsa deleshchiahu. You are referring to something, says Rashi, mafshitin big anoshim. Remove the clothes of people. Kolimer paislim din lahanasa. Give them a psak for their benefit. The reality is that they're going to be potter because it's an oinus again delishchiach. The fact that this would have happened to the river, they got clogged up. There was something that happened was something which is not part of the calculation. So even though he accepted upon himself an oinus, it's got to be an oinus that makes sense. But something which is not in the mindset of a possibility, no. It says the next Mishnah, which is building on the previous case. So let's go straight into Rashi. Lo yisyached imo. You're not supposed to be, a man and woman cannot be secluded. Zeshanos and get is referring to the case where a man already gave her a get. The Amr, and he said to her, Mehayoim imati. The get is chal apparently now, possibly, but only if I die. So the question is, it could work on Mafreya, that it was a get, and therefore they cannot be together. So Lunis Yachlimo, you can't be together. Shema Yavaleha. Maybe they'll have Bia. Digamandi Amachashin and Shema Baal Hashem Kedushin. So there's one possibility that, let's say they did have Bia. It was a get, and then it was a Bia, Utsricha get Shani, and therefore he's going to need a second get for that. Oman Deloy Chayesh, one is not Chayesh, that maybe they'll have Bia L'Shem Kedushin, Nami Mikol Makam Panuyahi, but also Yisachan and Panuya. You're still not to be with a Panuya. Okay. Because again, it's possible that you divorced her, therefore she's a Panuya, but you still can't have Yichud with a Panuya. With a Yachad Yimoy El Bifnei Adam, you have to have witnesses. Afil Al Pi Eved, Afil Al Pi Shivcha. You could even have slaves, servants, doesn't matter who they are. Any one person is enough, except for one person. Chutz Mishivchatam and Neshali Begaspa. Someone who is her maidservant, she's so close to and connected to that she would even have tashmish in front of her. So therefore, that she is the only person who will not count. So mahi ba'oisa hayomim. What is of those days? From this moment until his last moment. What goes on in that life with these people? So Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, as we continue Ayin Gimel Mebeis, because there's this concern they can't even have yichud together anymore. Keishas Isha Chodabraha. She has the status of being like she's married, says Rashi. Therefore, because she may in fact be married, so therefore if someone has tashmish with her on purpose, there's an Isser Diraisa, there's a Chiv Misa B'chenek. V'shagi B'chatas. V'afagav the Meis Ma'isa Chayli, even if he dies from the sickness, Lafi Shaloi Girsha El Samachamisa. Because he only divorces her only right before he dies. So we're going to see that in the Gemara. Gemara Moikula Ba'Aimerla B'Masiras Haget Harazeh Gitech. When he says upon the giving the get, this is when it's a get. Is Garshubo Me'eshani Ba'Oilam Imati. He said that the get is only in effect in the final moment of my life. Therefore, they're still really married. Hilka Rabbi Yehuda Savar Samachamisa Hu Dahavi Get. Therefore, before that, she's considered to be an Eishes Ish. Let's go into the Mishnah, then we'll finish this Rashi. It's like a suffix. It says Rashi, every moment, we're not sure. B'me'es she'ani ba'olam hilkach. When is that moment? He can die at any moment. Hilkach sveikihi v'haboleh be'osham taloi. Therefore, because of this, person who has tashmish is osham taloi. Okay, that's a lot better than getting chedek. Says the Gemara, Tanraban, Ra'uha shnesyachdimo, bafela. Let's say that you saw that they were actually secluded and it was dark. Oshiyashna imay tachas margois amita, or you saw that they were sleeping underneath the covers, if you will. So ein chayshin shemen nesachs b'davar acher. We don't have to assume that they had tashmish. There's no guarantee that that's actually what happened. But we are chayshin of znus, says Rashi, shema bo'aleha. So what does that mean? We're not chayish that they were isaac b'davar acher, but we are chayish? Isn't that a contradiction? We're going to analyze that. The ein chayshin mishum kedushin, says Rashi. We're not concerned that if they did have bia, that he did it for the sake of kedushin, therefore he'll need to give a second get. So Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Oimer, Av chayshin mishum kedushin. No, we actually are concerned that maybe if they had bia, that it was actually shem kedushin, if we need a second get. So my karma, what exactly was being said over here? It seems again contradictory. So Amr Rav Nachman, Amr Rabbi Borabu Hachem. This is the meaning. Ru'ua shenivala. You actually mamish saw them having bia. So there's no question there. So chayish mishum kedushin. In that situation, we are chayish from kedushin. Therefore, you'll need to give a second get. What happens if only naslak safim? Now that again, that's everyone, because you saw them having bia. So we're going to be concerned that maybe it was l'shem kedushin. Naslak safim. Let's say after they had bia, he gave her money. So chayish mishum znos. Maybe the only reason why he gave her money was because she's now like a zayna, and not for kedushin. He didn't have tashish with Oshem kedushin. He doesn't have to give a second get, and therefore that's the case that he gave her money. Even in this situation, even in the case where he had bia with her and then he gave her money. So if he had just bia with her, then we are chayshish. The question is, why did he have bia with her and then give her money? The fact that he gave her money, it's probably against that kedushin, because he could have had been mekadosh with bia. Therefore, the fact that he gave money, maybe that's an indicator that it was only Shem's nos. So the whole argument is only kisherua shenivla, that they had bia. So this is actually like everyone that says that if Taka, you did not see her having bia, then you don't need to give a second get, because there's no reason to assume that they had. So Mask will buy midik safim katani. When you tell him, mention anything about money. El Omer by Hachkem Rush and if you saw that they had bia. Again, chayish mishum znos. We are chayish mishum znos. We ain't chayish mishum kedushin. If you ask me, Huda Amrino, Av chayish mishum kedushin. Come on, also Hadi Emer Rachana Emer Rav Yochanan Machloikus. So again, this is a second reading. It's saying that in a situation where you saw them having bia, that's where there's an opinion that says we're not chayish of kedushin. However, fine. Even the case of just bia without money, so it's a machlokas. So come on, Haza the Amar Rachana Amar Rav Yochanan machlokas kishur shenivla. The whole machlokas if you saw them have bia. Of rosh shenivla they were calling to him again. Come on, Krabias Yehuda. Fine. Maskav Rava. So Im Kain my af. So what does it mean also? Af made sense when we're talking about not only in the case of just bia, but even the case where he gave money afterwards. Even if you didn't see them have bia, kedushin, which is unbelievable. The fact that they had yichud, that's enough of a reason to maybe be concerned that maybe they did have bia, because you saw yichud, maybe yichud and bia, so they saw the yichud, so maybe it was bia, and maybe the bia was also it was also considered to be l'shem kedushin. So the Gemara says, "Come on, also Hadi Emer Rachana Rabbi Yochanan Machlokas Kashura Shenivla of a lower Shenivla Divrei Hakol in Srichim and Get." Come on, Delokachad. No one will say like this. That says In the situation, the machok is when you saw the bia. If you didn't see, everyone holds that you don't need a get because that's not true. According to this opinion, there is an opinion that says that even without seeing the bia, you still have to give a second get. Okay. Weiter. So mahi bois in the yom. So we said before in the Mishnah, what is to be with these days? Rabbi Yehuda Omer Keshes Ish Chol Devreha. We consider it to be like an Eshes Ish, and therefore, if anyone has be with her, there's an Isser Chenek. There's a punishment of Chenek rather. Rabbi Yossi Omer Megreshes and Megreshes. That's a suffix, and therefore it's a suffix. So therefore, anyone who had be with her, they'd be Chayiv and Oshim Toli. Where it says Tana Ubulvad Shiyomos. There's one important detail. He's got to die, says Rashi. Of lo mace, if he didn't end up dying, igali milsa delav kitahu, the chayv chatat. Then, if in the event that he does not die, so obviously it was not a get, because it was all totally in his death. He didn't die, so therefore it's chayv chatas. Gemara says 1 second. Ulachi mayis, when he dies, havigita, then it should be a get. But kaima one day in gilach hamisa. As we said before, he didn't say it's get after I die. He said that the get is only in effect in the moment, the final moment of my life. Tanabana. Yomim shebinetayim. The days which are between, says Rashi, between the giving and the death. Bala, that situation, during that time, the husband is zakim b'tziyasa. He still is, they're like married, and therefore he can get all of her fine objects, and the work of her hands. He can be made for her nidarim, v'yarsha, and he'll inherit her. As we continue, ayin down with aleph, if he's a kohen, he can become tummy to her because she's considered his wife. Klol shel davar, the rule is harihi ishto chol davar, they're like married. El shen sricham and get sheni divrei Rabbi Yehuda. The only difference is you don't have to give a second get, says Rashi. Imes the sama chamisa havi get. So we say that if he would die, so you don't have to give another get. Rameir Emer no bi'ilasa tuya. The whole bia is toloi. We don't know what the story is. So says Rashi. What does that mean? Hadavar toloi, we're not sure. Ad shiyamos no, he dies. Oh, ad shiyamod mechayuzeh, or maybe he'll get healthy. Imes minachayli habal hapater. So if he dies from the sickness, so anyone who has tashmish is going to be pater. Why? Because he was already, they were divorced. Maybe it means at this moment, the time I'm giving the get, it'll be a get. When he dies, that he was already divorced. Since he was never divorced, so then a person would have tashmish, where their b'shagi would be chayv chatos. Rabbi Yossi Omer bi'ilasa suffix. He says the whole thing is a suffix. Says Rashi, Shema zuhi shah haru'oya l'samach hamisa shema enozu ve'enim gerusha hilkach im yomos maybe habal le'ha'asham tolei ve'im lo yomos b'chatas v'adai. Since you did something which was doubtfully forbidden, so you have to bring an asham tolei. Chachamim omer greshus and greshus vad shiyomos. Okay. So Ma'ika ben Ramei Rav Yossi. So Rav Yochanan Asham Toli Kuminaydu. Ramei lo Ma'isi Asham Toli. Ramei Rav Yossi Ma'isi Asham Toli. The Malchokas be to bring Asham Toli in this situation. Chalam Omer Migresha and Migreshes. Chalam Hana Rav Yossi sounds like the same. Ikuminaydu to Rav Zera. Yom Rav Zera. Omer Rabbi Mor Yomi Yomer Shmuel. Komachum Shem Chachamim Migreshes and Migreshes. Anytime we make the statement of it's divorce, not divorce, I mean it's a suffix. The husband is still obligated in providing her with mizonos. Question, and we'll stop there. Question 8. Mahi b'oisan yamim mahu atziyur. What is the case? Sheboy nachlo hatanoyim b'chayim habal leha uma hashitois. So what is the case? So again, as we said before a couple times, b'oyimer if a person has a gittin. This is your get that this get is only in effect in the final moment of my life. if I die, and then he dies. So according to Rabbi Meir, she's like an agency regarding all matters, and therefore the man would be chayav chatas. Rabbi Meir says you're potter, and according to the third shita, you would be chayav asham totally. Okay, so it's a machlokus with the chayav asham totally. Question TA12. Let's see how we did here. Mahi ba'isa yomer Yehuda imer keshas ish l'chadabra. Rabbi Yosi imer regression and regressions be'eza oifen ayri, which is said before. In my time, Rabbi Yosi. Why does he say this case of suffix? And he's asking us to quote Rashi. I only got this half right. Let's see what the answer is. TA12. But Omer has a Gittin me'ez shani mati. The time of Yosi the ain breira. Where is that Rashi? Rabbi Yosi regressions and the regression of regressions. Tonight I believe Rabbi Yisrael the right. Wish I could find this. Rabbi Yosi Shemazu V'im Yomos. I don't see the words Embrera. It's got to be in here somewhere. We'll have to find that. If you know it, please put it in the comments. Adkan.